good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, everyone, wherever you happen to be joining us from. My name is Scott Ant, and I manage sales strategy with Gideon Taylor. And I am here today with Andrew Bediz, practice lead for our AI UX practice. And I'll hand the mic over to Andrew here in just a moment. But to take care of a little bit of housekeeping first, we are glad to have you with us. If you've got questions as we go through the webinar, feel free to post those in the Q&A, and we'll go ahead and respond to those as we can. We might hold some of those until the end, depending on how the flow goes. For those of you, and also we will be sending out links to this recording after the webinar. We typically get those out within a couple of days afterwards. So keep an eye open for that. And if you want to share it with anybody else or watch it again, you are more than welcome to. You can always find recordings of these both on our YouTube channel and out on our website. So feel free to check out past events. We do host these lunch and learns on a monthly basis, and they range across a variety of topics. Today's is focused on AI, obviously, which is a very hot topic for everyone. But last month, we focused on helping organizations understand better ways, more efficient and effective ways of managing your PeopleSoft environments with regards to updating and making sure that those are current for your users. Next month, we are focusing on features in the latest release of GTE Forms, which is a product that I think many of the folks on the call today use. And then September is, I am really excited to see, because it is focusing on user experience and how business analysts can reshape the user experience inside PeopleSoft to deliver an easier, more intuitive navigation and UX. So that was going to be a really cool one. I highly encourage you guys to join us for those. For those of you who are not familiar with Gideon Taylor, we provide end-to-end PeopleSoft and Oracle services, everything from pre-planning through implementations, upgrades, optimizations, and ongoing maintenance, and everything in between there. So if you're ever looking for assistance in terms of just helping to manage and maintain or get to the next release or uptake a new feature, by all means, consider us a partner. We also specialize and have for decades helping organizations get the most value out of their PeopleSoft systems and now Oracle systems. And that includes extending that through intuitive, effective process automation with tools like GTE Forms and the GTE Flow, as well as AI and UX experiences. So keep us in mind if you guys ever have any questions or needs along those lines. And at this point, I'm just going to mention that AI is all the rage and all the buzz, but not all AI is created equal. And so Andrew is going to share with us some wisdom in terms of helping you kind of navigate with the right questions that you should be asking vendors and tools that you're looking to engage. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand this over to Andrew. Andrew, it is all yours.
Thank you, Scott, and great to be here at the Lunch and Learn series. This session, top 10 AI questions you're not asking. This is not about GT products or GT services, actually. I'll mention some AI stuff we're doing on 2 quick occasions. But other than that, it's really drawing upon the last 10 years of working in the enterprise AI space, where we see hiccups, challenges customers face, and if they had just asked some key questions, maybe they could have avoided some pain, be it financial pain, be it deadlines or otherwise. And so this session is all about drawing upon those experiences to give you all the playbook of the 10 key questions to ask. And if you ask these questions and you get good answers, your journey will be a lot smoother than it otherwise would have been. So we're going to jump into it here. I'm Andrew Bediz. Hi, I am the practice lead for AI and user experience here at Gideon Taylor. I've been in the enterprise space forever. I worked at PeopleSoft in the late 90s. We've been working in AI, as I mentioned, for over 10 years now, well before it was in vogue or you ever heard the words ChatGPT. So a lot of blood, sweat, and tears we've seen over the years. Before we talk about the questions you should be asking, I think it's important to reflect on why AI projects are failing. And you've probably seen a lot of this, and it gets a bit sensationalized in the news, but everyone talks about, yeah, we're playing with AI, we're doing a POC, we do a pilot, and we're not seeing the value we expected. And maybe we're shutting that down or reevaluating. And usually there are some key reasons why these AI initiatives fail. And if you understand them up front and you understand the questions to ask, far fewer of these projects can fail. And I will tell you, I will guarantee you from our own personal experience, AI isn't the reason these initiatives fail. It's always things outside the AI. The technology works. It can work beautifully. It just has to be done well and implemented well. So hopefully this session is going to get us closer to that goal. So over the years, 4 major areas where we've seen problems. Okay. Number 1, no value definition, right? So what this means is we're not defining the value we would get from AI. We're not thinking kind of business challenge first. We're thinking technology first. We need to say, look, when we do an AI project, this is the value we're going after. We want to do something faster. We want to do something cheaper. We want to do more with the same resources we have. We need to define that value, and it needs to be our North Star, and we need to go after it. And oftentimes, these AI projects don't have that North Star, and we're just playing and tinkering. And so that is definitely a cause of failures. Blind spots. So what we see is AI is big. It's complicated. I don't envy your guys' position. You're getting bombarded with marketing. And I can tell you, 8 and 10 emails I see on AI factually are incorrect, right? They're saying things that aren't true. And I don't think they're doing it intentionally, but it just creates confusion. And so how do we react to that? As customers, I think what happens is we do things like say, okay, well, if we ask them for that, SOC 2 checkbox, or, oh, we have this questionnaire everybody uses. We use it for all our AI projects. Let's just send over the questionnaire. We feel like we've done our diligence. And what happens is that creates blind spots because we don't actually understand what we're doing with AI, how our data is used. And that is a big reason for failure as well. Underestimation, right? We don't consider everything that goes into the cost, both in time and money in implementing AI and then continuing to run AI. I often tell folks, AI is not a project. It is a journey. It is a mode that you switch on and you don't intend to switch off. And so you need to estimate appropriately. Often things get underestimated where maybe things like security, system integration, always underestimated, right? User adoption, guardrailing, there are many things that get underestimated, and that's a source of failure. And then finally, long-term risk. I rarely, if ever, see clients really understanding the long-term risk profiles of their decisions, understanding what plan B means, what can happen, right? Can you leave the platform you're on? How easy is it, right? What happens if what happens if the government says you can't use that model anymore and you're in a sector that has to listen to the government? You better be able to pivot quickly, right? You better be able to understand long-term risks and how to manage long-term risks. So these are the 4 kind of thematic areas where we see the most amount of failures. So we took these areas and our experiences and we said, okay, let's draft a list of top 10 questions we wish every client would have asked before they got started. And so let's jump into that. I've broken this into 4 distinct sections. This is section 1. So question 1, section 1. I kind of mentioned this briefly already. Are we business challenge oriented or are we reacting to AI hype, right? And so, well, what does this mean? And we see this materialize a lot in RFPs, requests for proposals. And what happens is we're not oriented on the challenge, right? So, for example, if you're in higher ed, right, the business challenge around advising is not, well, we need a chatbot that students can talk to about advising, items. No, the business challenge is our retention for first-year freshmen is at 65%, and we need it over 75%. That's the problem that you're solving, right? So when you issue an RFP, it needs to be oriented to the problems, not oriented to AI. Because what happens is we get too prescriptive. We put out these RFPs. We have a checklist of capabilities. Those checklists are often informed by some demo we saw. And now we've painted all the vendors' creativity into a corner. We're not going to get the best outcome anymore because we're not saying, here's a problem. You tell us what's the best way to solve this? If you take that approach, what you'll find is every vendor is going to give you something different. You're going to have a broad array of solutions. You're going to be able to understand who's thinking deeply, who's not. You're going to have price points all over the map, and you'll really be able to get to a better outcome. Whereas if you just say, oh, we need a chatbot, it needs to be on our website, right? It needs to be able to crawl our website. That's not the right approach, right? You have to be oriented to the business challenges, not to a technology. Number two, what problem are we actually solving? This is somewhat of a derivative of question number one, but most importantly, how are we going to measure success? So what we'll see in AI quite often is folks will go into a pilot. Now, I have my own opinions of pilots. Personally, I don't think they work great. That's been my experience. The problem with a pilot is it's nobody's job, right? A pilot is this thing on the side. There's not a lot of investment in it, right? There's not a lot of accountability. So being successful, there's not as much emphasis on being successful as there would if you're all in from day one. But nevertheless, even if you do a pilot, what's important is you have to define success, right? So let's say our success criteria, let's say we have a help desk, right? And it takes us on average 3 days to close a case with the help desk, right? That's the business problem. 3 days, too long. We need to drop that in half. We need a day and a half, 36 hours to close the case, right? That is our objective. So we're going to run a pilot. And using this pilot, we're going to use automation with AI. So where the AI can close cases autonomously, we're going to let the AI answer questions before a case even gets created or close it shortly after the case is created. And we're going to run this pilot, right? Our objective is, on average, 36 hours, because previously we were running 3 days. When we hit that objective in the pilot is successful, we're done, triggered, go to production. No meetings, no decisions. The pilot was there to prove we were trying to achieve a measurable objective. We achieved it. We now move on. That's success. That's the way you become successful. If you pilot just to tinker, if you pilot just to have a cool demo, we're seeing a lot of failure with that type of an approach. So it's very important, to understand what problem you're solving, defining what success means, and then having that kind of automatic trigger of when we are successful, what happens next, and then who owns it, ongoing long term. All right, let's keep going. Section 2, data security and governance. This is a fun one. So question 3 is, where's our data actually going when the AI runs? You may be surprised. I don't know. I'm always surprised. I go to these conferences, I see these demos. Everyone's like, wow, we got to get that. We got to update and get that feature. And I say to myself, like, you guys realize that your enterprise data is going to a third party. You have no idea where it's going. It's going to a third party. I don't know if it's redacted. I don't know what they do with that data. Nobody asked that question, or it feels like nobody asked that question. I want to know details of where the data is actually going, whose servers is it going across, that sort of thing. You need to ask that question. The data can go through many hops in a modern enterprise, right? You're going to have on-premise systems. You're going to have SaaS systems. Data shuffles back and forth between on-premise and SaaS systems, right? It shuffles between SaaS systems. You then might have an AI solution, right? Let's say you're using a service management platform that's running in the cloud. Now that service management platform more than likely doesn't build their own AI models. So they're now calling out to a model provider. So there's 4 hops here that your data is going across. The demo might look cool, but it only looks cool because all your data jumps across all 4 hops. And more often than not, I see the attendees at the conferences not really getting this, not really understanding what's happening, where their data is going and how their data is used. So it's very important to ask that question. Where is it going? What's the path of the data? What exact data moves from step to step? That sort of thing. Following on that theme, right? What exactly is being stored? What is retained? What is reused? What data lives in that cloud solution? Who controls it? You got to ask this question and really understand it. There are many different types of data that you should understand, right? The first is what your users type into any kind of AI or the prompt or an utterance, sometimes we call it, right? what they're typing in, they may be typing in trade secrets. They may be typing in personal information that is material data, right? How long is that data retained? Is the vendor training it? Are they reselling it? Are they relaying it to a different model provider? What's the terms of their agreement? Can you export and delete that data when your contract ends? What control do you have over the longevity of that data of what people type in? You got to understand that. Similarly, it's not just what I type in, but now I'm going to get a response from the AI, right? Who owns that output? Right? Legally, look at your agreements. Who owns what the AI outputs? Because the AI's output is a derivative of the input oftentimes, right? So you should have ownership in that output, right? Are there licensing rights? Can that be stored? Is it reused downstream? You got to understand that. Then we have metadata, logs, activity, who did what, when did they log in, right? Who has access to those logs? Do you have access to those logs? Does only the vendor have access? How long are those logs retained? Those logs may not contain PII data, but it is important data, and you want to know where it's stored. Then you have your systems, right? So any good AI is going to connect to enterprise systems, right? We don't need to implement AI in the enterprise if all it is ChatGPT, right? The value is we're going to connect the AI to our enterprise systems. So the data from those enterprise systems that is used, where, what exactly is being passed, who controls what is being passed, is it retained, is it cached, does it get used for training, can it be masked, can it be redacted, right? So you have to ask those questions too. So really, there's quite a few categories of data, and it can be on multiple hops, retained in various ways for different lengths. You got to understand all of it. So it's an important question to ask, and I would not feel comfortable just because someone has a SOC certification. That does not mean these questions would be answered in your favor. Question 5. This is between you and your users. Obviously, we're going through a moment in time where there can be some distrust of AI, right? Not everybody is necessarily a fan. I don't think all of those concerns are unaddressed, but you need to be thinking about them so you can build that trust with your user. You need to consider that the user might be distrustful. So we have something called the transparency ladder. So when you approach an AI project, ask yourself, how are we going to build trust? How does the user know what's going on? How do we have ensure the user will come back and trust us, right? So I would say that, the bare minimum is really this level 2. We should always be, right, outlining that this response was generated by AI. We don't want to pretend to be human or fake it or anything like that, right? It needs to be out in the open. But you can climb up this ladder to a higher level, right? We can allow users to provide feedback to the AI and correct it and have those corrections, iterate in and improve the outcomes going forward. The AI should be able to show the user what it's doing. What are the steps it's taking to get to its final output? And why did it take those steps? And what is it thinking inside its own head, right? Having that transparency is really important, right? The user wants to know, if they ask, what was my last paycheck, that AI needs to connect to your HR system. The AI should just never say, oh, this is your last paycheck. You don't know what systems it's connecting to. No, be transparent. The AI should be telling the user, okay, in order to answer your question, I need to access the HR system. I'm about to do that. I'm going to go do that. Okay, I've done that. I've now taken that. Here's your response, right? And then finally have the system, the AI system should be able to flag uncertainty. It should be able to refuse to answer questions it's not supposed to answer. It doesn't have enough context to answer. It should never try to make things up or to fill in gaps. That's very important too. So you need to ask the question, how are we going to build that trust, and what kind of transparency we have? Here's a quick, just to illustrate the point, I'm going to use an example of our own product, IDA, and how we approach transparency. This is just one example, but hopefully this gives you a little bit of flavor here. I'm going to click on this chat. I happen to be in finance here. And I'm going to ask a question of the chat. I'm saying, what vendors am I spending the most on? And what you'll see here is the AI, see this? It says, hey, I'm going to go get the account top vendors. I'm basically accessing the finance system to give you your answer. So the user knows this is authoritative. It's coming from the finance system. That's what the AI did. And there's my answer. As an administrator, I can come in here to the logs and I can see that interaction, but I should be able to see how that was sourced, right? So historically, I can go back and I'm able to see, okay, that was sourced from information from the finance system. Similarly, like let's say I'm wrestling with a particularly challenging scenario, I should be able to trace exactly the AI's thinking steps, right? And what you can see here is we have a tracer in our own product where we can see everything the AI is thinking, every decision the AI makes, every piece of data the AI sends to us, every piece of data we send to the AI. Total transparency. So it not only gives you trust in the solution, but it allows you to diagnose and solve complex problems where maybe the AI took a wrong turn, or maybe it made an assumption it shouldn't have made, and then you can improve upon that. So AI transparency is really important. Make sure you ask those questions and you're able to answer. Okay, let's see here. All right, section 3. Implementation reality. The questions your CFO will care about. So question 6, this is one of the biggest ones. If I had to do a top 3, this is going to make my top 3. What does integration, quote unquote integration, actually mean? And what will it really cost? Right? I'm sure we have quite a few PeopleSoft people on this call. I see it all the time, right? We'll have an RFP and the RFP says, do you integrate with PeopleSoft? What percentage of the vendors that respond to that do you think say no? I think most of them say yes, because we've not really defined what integration actually means. It could mean, oh, we're integrating into the UI. I mean, we're putting a chat icon on your PeopleSoft page. That's integration. Yeah, we do it. We're good. And you set your budget, you charge for it, and then you start asking questions. Well, wait a second. No, we want it to actually talk to PeopleSoft. We want it to source data from PeopleSoft. Oh, well, that's not what we meant by integration, but we can help you. We'll put a consulting team in place and we'll build out those integrations. Or yeah, we can do integration. Like we can, we have we can hit any kind of API. We'll do the APIs and PeopleSoft exists, right? It's a legacy system. It doesn't have APIs like other systems have, right? So an integration need that goes undiscovered can lead to, a significant doubling in budget of that project. 85% of AI projects fail or stall, most often due to poor integration planning. I'll also say the most valuable AI we see out in the field are ones that are integrated, not with one, but multiple systems, right? That is the trick. That's how you unlock value. And we'll talk about that more here a little bit later. But legacy integration can add an extra 35% to your project cost. All this data is taken from research and studies in 2025 or later. So the integration risk is real, especially in the world like PeopleSoft or homegrown applications. That's where a lot of effort can be hidden that you don't really realize and that you're not building into your TCO models when you consider the solutions in front of you. So really understand what integration means. Can I read data? Can I write data? How's that data stamped? How is it audited, right? Can I put the icon in the pages? Can I not? Like, what exactly does integration mean? And I want to see it. Is it out of the box? Or is it an SDK where I have to build something? What exactly do I have to build? It's a very important question. Okay, question 7. What ongoing human effort is required to keep this AI useful? I mentioned this earlier, and I'll repeat it again. AI is a journey, right? It is not a project. You have to be all in for the long haul. And that means human effort's going to be required, right? AI is a form of automation, right? I've used this analogy before, right? We can, Ford could automate, the entire assembly line process. We could have robots building our cars, right? But what happens? There's a new regulation comes out. right? And now the robots have to change how they're building the cars. A supplier's part changes, and now we have to change how we're building the cars. Well, humans have to get involved. They have to update the automation. They have to tell the robots, oh, this has changed. We have to use a thinner mirror. We have to emit less carbon, whatever it may be. The humans don't go away in an automation effort. Actually, they become even more important. So you need to understand that human effort, going forward. In enterprise AI, because of where we are with our trust of AI, you will find that there's quite a bit of human in the loop needs, especially for complicated workflows. Gartner did a study in 2025, 60% of the workflows needed a human in the loop step. That means AI did some automation, but some human had to review that and approve it. Or the AI approves the obvious stuff, right? But it flags things that need approval, like let's say expenses, right? If your expense trip is under a certain mark and you didn't expense any lunches and there's nothing, there's no movies on your hotel bill, auto approve it, right? But things that are exceptions, those need approval. So you need to be able to support, you need to be able to allow the AI to go fast by supporting the AI when it needs decisions. You need to review what it's doing. You need to help refine it and improve upon it. You need to look at user feedback, right? Whether it's thumbs ratings or other feedback, right? There's always a human element, and often it is underestimated. McKinsey found 2 to 3 times underestimated what kind of human engagement is needed on an ongoing basis. So a very important one. All right, last section, section 4. Number 8, what breaks when we try to scale this across the enterprise? So again, we see a lot of AI projects going into a pilot and everything looks cool. Everything looks awesome. Then we try to scale it and roll it out to production to a lot of different people in different roles with different security access, right? Touching different systems, and now suddenly it fails, right? That same McKinsey study, 70% of AI initiatives stall before full-scale deployment due to organizational and governance challenges, not due to the technology, right? It's the organizational and governance stuff. The biggest problem that we see, one of the biggest problems, is ownership. 20% of enterprises report having clear ownership of their AI systems. So what we'll often see is IT will own the AI, sort of, right? But the AI is performing business actions that are owned by business units or departments. The AI is informed by information that is published by those business units. It's using data that is maintained by those business units. And then we go to production, and the owner of the AI solution is not the business units, right? And that can cause trouble, right? So knowing who owns the solution going forward is really important, and what possibly could break when we scale this thing into production. All right, number 9. How will this AI work with other AI systems and agents? So there was a time where everybody had a nirvana in mind that enterprises would pick one AI platform and everything would run through that platform. We have one-stop shop. It would answer all your questions. And that was a noble goal. I was hoping we would get there. But what ended up happening is every application decided we're going to bundle AI in and we're going to release it as an update. Sometimes you don't even turn that update on, right? It just rolls in and by default it's on. And before you know it, you're using AI, your data is going to the cloud, it's using generative, and you never said yes, but you didn't say no, right? And this is just a strategy, right? Those SaaS apps want you inside their app. They don't want you outside their app. You're going to renew if you're in their app every day. If you never see their app, you might not renew. You might question, is this bill worth it? Right? So that walled garden approach was, we want to keep you in our app. So we're going to release AI, this kind of siloed AI. And so they've released all these agents. So now this promise of having one AI to do everything, I'm afraid that ship has sailed. That is over. We need to now refocus on AI that works together. And it's really important, I think, right? Today, right? Okay, well, I got a service management application. They have a bot. I'm good. Okay. Well, I got a HR application over here. It has a bot. I'm good. Right. I've got a learning management system, or I've got a content management system, or finance, and they all have bots. So I'm covered. I'm good. Well, I often ask the question, imagine you're the CEO, you're running a business, and you're allowed to meet with your executive team, right? You're allowed to meet with the CFO. You're allowed to meet with the CTO. You're allowed to meet with the COO, but you can only meet one-on-one, right? So you meet with the CTO. They talk about all this great stuff. Then you go into your meeting with the CFO, and the CFO goes, well, what's all this token spend about? You're like, well, geez, I wish I could ask the CFO. I got to wait to my CFO meeting or my CTO meeting, right? There's no follow-up. Wouldn't it be better if the CEO could sit in a meeting with all the executives to solve those problems? Well, AI is no different. If the AI can't talk to multiple systems, it's a huge, it is a headwind. You're never going to get the value that you could get if your AI could talk to multiple systems. And so sometimes your AI is going to talk to the APIs of multiple systems, but what's probably going to happen over the long run is all these systems have their own AI. So who's going to allow the AI to talk to the AI? So these are important questions to ask. Some of these vendors are not going to allow the AI to talk to the AI. Some of them will. And we'll see how that all shakes out. You've seen so far, I think Salesforce's approach has been, we're going to let anything talk to Salesforce. We don't care. We don't care if you never see a Salesforce screen. We're going to charge you more for it, but that's what we're going to do. And I think maybe ServiceNow has taken a different approach. So it's important to understand all the applications and what their approach is, but more than anything, be prepared that your AI should have the capability either today or soon in the future. Your end goal is that AI can talk to AI. That's what's going to make your life the easiest. It's going to reduce integration costs you have, and it's going to be better for users. It's going to be better for that CEO. All right, number 10. This is a huge one, and we've already seen this play out in real life this year. How do we avoid model lock-in as the market evolves? I find that this moment in time that we're in right now, it reminds me a lot of 1998. That is the year I joined, to date myself. I joined PeopleSoft in the dot-com boom that was going to last about a year longer. At that moment in time, you would have come to me and you would have said, what's the best browser out there? And I probably would have told you Firefox. And I also, Firefox, I studied at University of Illinois, and Mosaic was the best browser while I was studying. So it was Mosaic, then it was Firefox, and 5 years later, right, it's IE, and 5 years later after that, it's Chrome. Models, I feel, are going to be the same way. What's in vogue today is going to be different in 5 years. And you should not invest or lock yourself in to one particular model or platform. You need the ability to be agile and to pivot across models. This is super important. We already saw it earlier this year. Government put Anthropic on the supply chain risk category. So certain organizations that have to abide by those criteria had to quickly change from using Claude to using something else. And I think this is going to continue to happen. There's going to be capability differences. There's going to be regulation issues. You need to be able to pivot, and you need to be able to do it quickly, within seconds, within minutes. Not, okay, we need to re-implement on this new model. It's going to take us 6 months. That's not going to work. So it's very important to make sure you have an answer to that question. How do we avoid the model lock-in? So if we take these 10 questions, and if I were to kind of summarize them, this slide, there's 4 major categories. These are questions that you should be able to ask yourself that you know the answers to, right? Where's our data going? How is it retained? What does integration really cost? What do I have to build personally? Right? What's my annual cost versus implementation cost? What are the usage costs that are hidden? Right? If this thing's really popular, am I going to be paying more as the year? Am I paying tokens? Right? The more my people use tokens, the more I'm paying. And how is that going to spiral out of control? Right? How much control realistically do we have to switch vendors? Who owns the outcome and not the project? Also, this is a key slide. Make sure you can answer these for yourself, all of them. The goal of this session is not to slow AI adoption. Trust me, I am, in the lead car of the train to get AI deployed as much as possible. I don't want to slow down AI adoption. The goal of this presentation is to adopt AI on purpose, to not do things without this level of diligence, which just ends up resulting in longer delays. What we see is customers go down one of these paths and now they have sunk cost. So then they start to throw good money after bad, and we could have saved them from all that. And then it takes their AI from maybe it could have been out there in 6 months, 12 months. Now all of a sudden, for them to see value, they're at 2 years, 3 years, 4 years because these questions weren't top of mind. So that's my point here. Ask better questions, push the vendors harder. Don't outsource the thinking. Now, having said that, going through this whole list and all these experiences, we thought, okay, what are these pains and what are these pitfalls that customers are facing? And so this summer, we have introduced, we have a product called IDA. The second generation of that product is out this summer. It's called IDA Next. And I really took all those questions we just went over and said, what if we had the right answer to all of those? And what if we built a platform and with those answers in mind from day one? What could we have? And that was really the inspiration behind the second generation of the IDA platform, IDA Next. It's agentic native, and it's really cool. But this webinar is not about that. If you want to see it, drop us an email, hello@GideonTaylor.com. We can set up a time to show you. It's rolling out slowly just so we can control the amount of volume we get, but we are running a charter program. So happy to talk more if you're interested. That's it. I have some wrap-up slides, but before we get to there, we got plenty of time. I want to take questions. Scott, I can't see on my screen the Q&A. You want to help me navigate that? Because I'm sharing.
Yeah,
Are you
there's nothing in there yet.
Okay.
But folks, this is an excellent opportunity to ask questions that you guys have been dying to ask. Andrew covered a lot of ground this afternoon, but I'm sure that there are some things that he missed or just went by too quickly.
Well, I had to go top 10.
That's true.
If I did top 20,
it wasn't top 50.
Nobody would have been able to have the time in their schedule to sign up. Okay, as we wait for questions, I'm going to do a couple housekeeping items, or maybe you're going to do those housekeeping items, aren't you? We have some upcoming lunch and learns. Scott,
yeah, the lunch and learns. I kind of teased these at the beginning. The one coming up. Oh, there's something in the chat. Hang on a sec. Let me.
Yeah.
The pace was perfect. Great presentation. Thank you, from Lisa. Thanks, Lisa. So coming up on August 20th, next month's Lunch and Learn is focused on GTE forms and what's included in the latest and greatest release 3.76. If you look at that little write-up there, we list over 20, we kind of tease over 20 improvements that are included in that we're going to be covering as part of that webinar. So that is one of the exciting things about organizations that are using GTE forms, and this is also true for IDA. We are continually evolving and continually enhancing our products. So organizations that invested 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago are still reaping new innovative benefits today and taking advantage of the latest and greatest that we offer. Oh, and Kathleen says this webinar was exceptional. It has all eye-opening questions for us all to know about. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. September 17th, I mentioned, is also going to be a cool one in terms of UX. If you're looking at kind of reimagining what your PeopleSoft experience can be, we're going to be featuring the latest generation of our Page Builder tool, Page Builder Studio. And it allows for a significant amount of configuration to redesign what custom pages can look like and build those solutions out for easy navigation, intuitive use. Yeah, so certainly join us for that.
Great. And then if questions come in, you can interrupt me. July 22nd, one of our most famous engineers, Tim Slater, He is going to be at the, what is this? This is the technology SIG.
Yeah, it's a webinar.
It's a webinar. So it's online. Looks like it's in about a week, right? And Tim is going to go over, Tim is kind of a master people tools guy, and Tim has built some tools that will turbocharge your people tools development. So if you're building in people tools and you want to do it faster and better with less bugs, this is for you. He's going to go through 3 different tools that are open source and been released to the public. Anyone can download them free of charge. And how to use these tools. There's something called App Refiner, which takes People Tools App Designer and turbocharges it, makes it much easier. DMS Viewer, the ability to look inside data mover data files and even change those data mover files without going back and re-exporting. And the Trace Wizard tool, which allows you to run a trace in People Tools and bring it into a visual analyzer to pinpoint exactly what the problem is with performance or otherwise from a PeopleSoft trace file. So this is, it's going to be technical. He's going to get deep and detailed. And if you're into that sort of thing, July 22nd for you. And we have my final slide.
Alicia, do you want to come off mute and
Sure.
talk about upcoming training?
Yeah, so just highlight a couple of training classes or things that we have coming up. One that is new, we have a new course catalog and a new training calendar that are much easier to use if you've tried to navigate our training in the past. We have significantly improved that, so I highly recommend clicking on those QR codes and visiting our site to see what offerings we have available. We also have a really extensive new listing of PeopleSoft courses. So if you've got anybody in your organization that needs training in specific PeopleSoft modules or needs to beef up on some of that, we have a lot of new offerings in the PeopleSoft realm. So check it out.
Awesome. Alicia, thank you.
Yep.
And Andrew, there are a couple of questions that have come in.
Yes.
Sally asks, our finance team is just in the process of implementing IDA. How does IDA Next fit in? Is it just an upgrade of IDA or is it a separate product?
Yeah, great question. So IDA Next is Gen 2 of IDA. It was essentially rebuilt from the ground up with everything we've learned over the last 10 years. So all current IDA customers get to move to IDA Next. The timing of that, your IDA managed service team will work with you on that. There's not complete feature parity today. It has some things that IDA, the regular IDA doesn't have, but there's a couple things in regular IDA that aren't yet in IDA Next, and there's a whole bunch of new stuff coming. So we're going to have more coming out with videos and details, and we will be in touch with you to share all that. But it'll be a free upgrade, basically.
This one's interesting. How do you feel about local AI models? Do they solve some of the problems with cloud-based AI?
Yeah, interesting question. In my experience, when you're doing complicated agentic tasks, right? So if you want to update data in PeopleSoft, let's say, right? You want AI to help automate onboarding, or you want AI to, help vendors diagnose why they're not being paid on their invoices. You need very high quality thinking and reasoning models. There's a reason why some of the vendors out there, Workday, Oracle, Salesforce, there's a reason why they don't have their own models. Because if the open source models that you're allowed to run locally were good enough, of course they would use them. They're cheaper. They would keep the data in their data centers. The problem is they're not good enough for high reasoning thinking tasks. They're fine for summarization. They're fine for content generation. So it really depends on use case. But as it stands today, if you need to do high level thinking and reasoning, really only Claude and GPT fit the bill today for the most part. Grok is trying to catch up, not quite there yet. Gemini step behind. But a model like Llama, we've run through testing on Llama in Oracle Cloud, and it falls pretty short of what the foundational models can do today for those advanced use cases. So I do think there's renewed attention on open source models and data residency and running them locally, but you have to know that the quality level drops quite a bit today.
Good to know.
Yeah.
You've mentioned tokens a few times.
Yeah.
Are there different ways of costing out usage or consumption for AI? How does that stuff work?
Well, ultimately, a token is how foundational model providers charge you, right? That's their abstraction method to pay for their compute, their intellectual property, kind of bundle it all. A token is, think of it like a syllable, kind of, right? It can be a portion of a word, it could be a whole word, that sort of thing. And so many vendors charge by token because they're worried about runaway costs too, right? So they're worried that you could have a user in there that's asking 20 questions back and forth of the AI. They're going to generate much more expense than a user asks one question and leaves. And so they have no way to price that and protect themselves unless they price it by tokens, because they're trying to match up their pricing to what ultimately they're paying the foundational vendor. This is obviously a point of contention right now, and there are CFOs out there that are seeing budgets kind of spiral out of control for token use. So it is a hot topic. In IDA Next, for example, we've taken a different approach where we are going to charge in what we call conversational bands, not per token. And so we're going to absorb some risk because of that, but it's going to be a friendlier, easier pricing model that folks can understand. We'll see how that evolves as time goes on, but that's how it works today.
Any other questions? All right. If not, I think that we can call it a wrap. For those of you who are making your plans for future conferences, I'll mention that we will be sponsoring the Reconnect Dive Deep virtual conference in October with a number of different sessions and a virtual booth. And we highly encourage you guys to join us there if you've got additional questions or just want to find out more about what GT does, or visit GideonTaylor.com. There's a whole lot of information on our website, including webinars and videos of our products and solutions. Oh, it looks like there's another one that came in from Peter. I did not fully understand the answer to asking, where does my data go? That is a concern for us as we consider AI. When users submit a prompt that gets data from our HCM system, does our data go out of house?
Yeah, so if you're using a generative agentic-based AI system, what happens is traditionally, right? I ask a question such as, what was my last paycheck, right? And that goes into the system. The system says, okay, well, AI can answer that question, but AI needs context to answer that question. So how do I give AI context? So the system goes to PeopleSoft and says, hey, can you give me the payroll data for Andrew? And then gets that data back, and it takes the user's question, it takes the context, which is the payroll data, sends it to AI and says, can you answer this user's question with this context? AI then takes it and basically creates a short summary. Yeah, your last paycheck was for $1,000. So what's going to the model is any data that was pulled from PeopleSoft. Now, there's good ways and bad ways to execute that pipeline, right? And that's why you have to ask the question, right? The bad way is that the data I'm sending over is Andrew Bediz, Empl ID 1234, paycheck July 15th, paycheck amount $1,000, deposited into bank account 1234, blah, blah, blah. And they send that to the model. Model's going to answer the question. You're going to see the demo. You're going to be like, wow, that's amazing, right? That's not what you should have done. What you should have done is said a user asked a question and a user had a payroll deposit on July 15th of $1,000 to a bank account ending in 123. Because now what the model gets is not identifiable. Never said Andrew, never said Empl ID, never said the full bank account number. So to use generative AI, yeah, it's got to have context, it's got to have data. The question is what data and in what form? That's where the magic sauce is. And oftentimes Well, maybe not enough magic is applied depending on what you're looking at. Does that help?
Helps me.
No.
Excellent. Thanks, Peter. All right. That is it for the queue, unless there's any last questions. Going, gone.
You know where to find us.
Yep. Everyone, thank you very much for joining. You can expect to receive a link to watch the recording at your leisure in the next few days, and look forward to hopefully having you join us on a future Lunch and Learn. Take care. Have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.